Curious Learning began in 2011 as a research collaboration between technology researchers looking at using education for learning at MIT and dyslexia and literacy neuroscience researchers at Tufts University. And this was a while ago, and the first question was really a proof of concept question, wondering if you use the science about what we know about how people learn to read to curate a set of early learning games and give those to kids, how will they use it and how will they learn? And like Wanda explained earlier today, we did something very similar, inspired by the hole-in-the-wall experiment and studies to give kids the opportunity to learn how to use the devices on their own. And what we saw really quickly was that they were learning, and over time we went back and measured their progress, and consistently kids learned the equivalent of what you would expect to see in a well-resourced US preschool and kindergarten. About a third of the kids in the initial pilot study actually taught themselves to read, even though they'd never attended school and didn't have access to formal education, books, or literacy in the community. And so we saw that with the first study, there was a separation between everyone was making basic progress on fundamentals like letter learning and letter sounds, but only a third of the kids actually jumped the gap to decoding and reading passages. Going forward, the team tried to replicate these studies in about a dozen different contexts, from kind of lower income communities around the world to middle income, like in Peru and South Africa, to rural communities in the US and Australia. And we saw really consistent results over this time period. What our vision is today is to create a set of content and a platform that would allow anyone with access to a smartphone to have access to content that would allow them to learn to read with or without access to formal education, so that will accelerate early learning for kids who are in school by multiple years, and that even for children who increasingly gain access to smartphones at the home, who may not be able to go to school at all or go to a good school, can continue to learn to read. And so the long-term vision is to have a personalized learning platform that is able to include content from lots of different sources. The way that we're building that is really first focusing on creating a library of free open source content that is designed to be localized to mother tongues that kids actually speak, and so that they can read in their mother tongue and then continue to learn. And the way that we think about this content is in 3 stages. The first, reading literacy fundamentals, so learning letters, letter sounds, getting to the point where you can decipher a simple word. Decoding, so going to the point where you can read simple stories. And then finally fluency, so transitioning from learning to read to reading to learn. So the first project has been this app called Feed the Monster, which we've partnered with the developers to take an existing app and localize the language, the pedagogy, the audio, and some of the graphics. The first version was in Arabic. We currently have about 25 languages, and we're going to 50 to 60 this year. And the goal with this is to give kids the ability to develop the fundamentals of reading. The second piece is really providing an opportunity to develop decoding skills. And so this shows just a single screen of what we call curious readers, which are deeply interactive books. So in addition to narrating the text, there are a set of other features that you can see. When you touch the word, it actually illustrates the concept. Here's a list of some of the basic features that we're building into these story apps. So it narrates itself. You can tap text and it reads it. We call it iconomation. You tap a word and there's a little illustration of the word. There's links between the text and the graphics, so if you change the illustration, it actually can change the text. Decision nodes, so we embed multiple choice options. And then story branching, so based on the decision node that you choose, it actually changes the story so you can create cause and effect relationships. And what we're doing now is creating a library of about 30 multi-level stories. So there are 3 to 5 levels of literacy content as kids learn to read better, and in English and Kiswahili for the demo. The second stage is creating a set of authoring tools so that anyone can actually localize the existing stories or author new stories of their own. And then finally, once we have this reader that has a bunch of different stories and activities that you can access, we're working with researchers to develop automated assessment tools so that the apps will actually track learning progress and allow researchers to test the effectiveness of new content activities and to personalize what content's available for individual children. Thank you.